This is the second episode of the Gaijin Motorsports podcast, named TBD, still TBD. So I'm just going to be doing a little bit more of the same. And let's just jump right in. This time you can see my screen as opposed to last time. And the one piece of feedback that I got was the music got kind of annoying. So no music this time. Anyway, let's start. So we're going to start off with some reels here, as is the case. I added these this past week, but I have forgotten almost all of them. So let's just go with this one. So I'm looking at a girl kicking a ball in a train, and it hits the wall and it goes to the camera, and it sort of, jump scares you. And then that cuts into a car edit. This one, I liked it because it surprised me, and then I ended up seeing a bunch of them afterward. It's a pretty standard edit, I would say, after that, but it's a good hook. It gets your attention, and yeah, that explains why it's become sort of a little bit of a trend. And I would say it's mid. I would say it's not cringe, definitely not. Like, it's a pretty cool edit. I don't remember the music that's on this. Let me see if I can hear it. I don't know. It's like electronic music or something. But yeah, I would say that's mid. Okay, this one. Okay, so I'll describe it first. What we're seeing is the sort of a stereotypical Challenger owner who talking on the phone and has a leash attached to his car. And whatever you're imagining what the stereotypical Challenger owner is and what he looks like, that's what I'm seeing, right? And I can't hear the audio here, but I know in this one he's like, essentially the setup is that the car is sort of personified as an animal, and it sees another car and it starts like, getting aggressive and moving up. I wonder if I should just have my headphones on for this, to be honest, so I can actually describe this sound. But yeah, it's like the car is revving as if it's like an animal growling, and the dude's trying to stop it, and the car drives off chasing a Durango, right? I think this is unbelievably cringe. This is like, I know I kind of bagged on furries last time, but this is like the same level of weird as that stuff. Personifying your car and like pretending it's an animal is sort of furry adjacent, and this trend I've seen it maybe 2 to 3 other times here, and it's terrible every time. Like, please just stop doing this. It's so weird. I feel like we shouldn't be treating our cars like people or animals. Animals is going too far. People, it's a bit more acceptable, because I get it. We as car enthusiasts form bonds with our cars, and naming them, like, although that's not something that I've ever been into, I get it. It's kind of like a friend, a companion, that kind of thing. So I understand it from that perspective, although I do still think it's unnecessary, because logically speaking, these are tools. They serve a purpose. They're collector items, so on and so forth. And so the personification is a bit odd to me, and this sort of trend here just takes it over the line and just puts it squarely into cringe territory. Please stop this immediately. Okay, let's see what the next one is. In a similar vein, let me listen to this. So it's like a dude. So the caption just says priorities, and he's showing his like messed up, beaten up shoes, and then the camera slowly pans up to reveal a car. And so when I was watching this, I was like, okay, I see where this is going. We're gonna pan up. We're gonna see like a GT3 or a 458 or Murcielago or something like that. But no, it just sort of it goes to a Charger. It's just a badly modified Charger, uh, and it's just funny. I think the post here was supposed to express some sort of, I don't know, subversion of expectation where you're like, oh man, my shoes are all dirty and disgusting. I'm such trash, but actually my car is really cool. But no, your car is like trash though. It's like still trash. So that's what this one is. It's cringe, but it's funny. I'll give it a I'll give it a mid because it makes me laugh how sort of disillusioned this is, because it is, it's a badly modded Charger. There's nothing cool about it in my opinion. So it's not this sort of antithesis of priorities versus, or like, you know, you're lowly prioritizing your clothes compared to your car. Like, no, you just you just have a shitty car as well as shitty clothes. So yeah, I wonder what the comments say. Let's see. Let's go through a few of these and see what they're saying. Where's him? Yeah, not a Dodge guy, but I fuck with it. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like it hit its target audience where it's people like Mopar guys, I guess, who think Chargers are cool. And look, not to like back on Chargers too hard, but I mean they're cool as cars. Like in a vacuum, Chargers and Challengers are cool. Specifically when you go higher up, as far as, I don't know, like a Demon, or you know, Red Eye, Hellcat, all that stuff. Those are cool cars. I'd love to drive one of those cars one day. They're ruined by their owners, to be honest. And so that's why it's sort of hard to separate sort of the art from the artist, in this case the owner from the cars, because I just so deeply associate these cars with their owners and the type of people that tend to own them, that it's hard for me to see one of these cars and be impressed. The only, like, one of the few exceptions I would say is like a Demon 170. That shit's cool. It's just straight up cool. I don't care what you say. Like, it's hard not to love that car. It's just raw performance and badassery, to be honest. But most of them are not to me because of the owners. All right, what do we got here? Okay, so we got a girl wearing Heelys, throwback for my 90s, I guess just 90s kids actually. Heelys were kind of out of it by the early 2000s, I think, or for early 2000s kids. But anyway, this is a little girl wearing her Heelys, sliding in the supermarket, then proceeds to eat absolute shit on the ground as she falls face forward. And as she's hitting the ground, it cuts to a car edit of the 355, yeah, yellow 355, and this one, it's pretty similar to the first one we saw, with the ball and the train, and the music really isn't much of anything. It's just sound effects. It's pretty similar to that first one. However, one cooler car, the 355 alone is cooler than all the BMWs I saw in the first post, as well as you get to see a kid just absolutely eat shit. That always makes me happy, so there's that. And the edit is just cooler. So this one's cool, overall cool. Not cringe, not mid. I support it. Oh, this final one, this one's pretty funny. Let me see what the music is here. So it's a girl cleaning a car, the interior, and she gets to clean the what is that called? The handbrake. It's hard to describe this without being crass, but I think you see where I'm going with this. She's like, there's like romantic R&B music, so she's cleaning the handbrake handle, and then the car, which is a Mini Cooper, so not the coolest, is just spraying everywhere. I don't think that properly communicates what I'm seeing, but I think you get the general idea. And this is funny. I don't necessarily like this form of humor. However, I do appreciate humor that has shock value. Anything that just makes me sort of, this sort of takes me aback a little bit. And I guess subverts expectations and just has that startling effect. And I think this does that effectively. It's funny. I like it. Cool. Okay, that's it for the social media section. Normally I would do some sort of news or specifically about new technology here. Again, I'm still setting up this whole podcast thing, so figuring it out. But there was nothing I saw that was terribly interesting that I could dig into the technology this week. I'm skipping that. And next, we're gonna play some Dulls. Just a few games here. I have a Cardle and Car Guesser. And yeah, so basically it's largely the same thing. Cardle, I just guessed the car. And looking at this, I feel like it's very clearly an R35, right? How do I guess this? I think I have to restart the page. Yeah, there we go. So I feel like it's obviously a GTR here. What year though? So I'm looking at the picture. I feel like that rear bumper, it doesn't look like the older versions, like, because the R35 came out, what, 2008, I think? This doesn't look old, so I'm gonna guess like 2013. Yeah, I probably didn't get the year precisely right. 2015, so it gives you like a little bit of margin error of, I think, 2 years. So yeah, I know my GTRs, man. So we're good there. And then Car Guesser, pretty much the same thing, I think. Okay, let's get started. All right. Something old, obviously. American, I think. I don't think they digitally remove the badges from this game, because I think they just scrape dealer listings and then post the pictures. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe that might be a Jeep grill. Let's see where that gets us. Jeep. Okay. Cool. This is gonna be a tough one. I don't know Jeeps. Let's see. Jeep Cherokee. Okay. Jeep Cherokee. And they give me options for the year, so it's very clearly an old car, so 92, one and done. I'm just that good, I think. So I didn't even need to see the other images. I feel like this is the token vehicle for like Midwestern white women in movies. Whatever, you take that how you will, but I feel like this Jeep Cherokee is the one. All right, quick mode. This is, we're just gonna guess quickly, I think, is the crux of this. This is a Porsche, obviously. Do Austin Healey Fiat, sure, looks good. And I realize this isn't good for audio. This is Sylvia S15, which is gonna transition well. BMW. And I don't recognize the logo, so Geo, I guess. Cool. Easy peasy. And the reason I mentioned the S15 in that little car guesser segment there is because I've been personally looking for an S15. I want to import one or buy one here if the right one comes up, specifically spec Rs, and therefore I would like to talk about the S15 market, which is an interesting one. I feel like, so I have cars and bids up here, just to get us started as far as figuring out what the market looks like in the US. And I feel like these cars are not as hype as we've seen some other 90s JDM icons. And I don't know why that is. And if someone could enlighten me, that would be appreciated. Because we've seen Supras, now Evo. I mean, Evos are like, a lot of them are USDM cars, right? But we've seen a lot of these 90s JDM cars get legalized, GTRs, of course. I can't think of what else right now. I mean, like EK Type Rs. Point is, all of these JDM cars get legalized, and they just shoot up in price. They go absolutely crazy. And I don't know what S15 prices were like before they were legalized, but I suspect they weren't too much lower than what they are now, because they're not crazy expensive now. For nice ones, yes, especially if you're buying in the US, they are fairly expensive for what they are. But they are not like that expensive in Japan, comparatively speaking. So I'm showing here some Japanese auction website, and all these are S15s, right? So we're just looking through these. These are 2002s. One thing I would like to notice, or I'd like to note, based on my experience looking for these cars and trying to import one, I do notice this may not be true, but this is just sort of my interpretation. Cars that are not legal yet tend to be more affordable than those that are. So for example, like a 2002, I tend to see them auction off for fairly low prices, like very, very much in the mid-teens a lot of the times for a Spec R. Granted, a lot of these are R-grade cars, but I feel like they're significantly more affordable than legal cars, so 2001 and 99 and 2000. So I'm guessing that whole ability to import them has impacted their prices for sure, and is still, expressing that behavior for the cars that are currently available, like only in Japan versus being able to be imported. But that being said, they're still not awful. If you want an R-grade car in Japan, you can get a Spec R for like late teens. You can get a Spec R for mid-teens if you're willing to have a bit of compromise in terms of mileage and condition. And I think that's pretty good. The cars that I've been looking at like 3.5 grade cars or better. And generally, you're looking at like late teens if you want to buy the car, probably, or even early 20s for maybe a grade 4. So after shipping and registration and all that, you're probably looking at like either low to mid 20s, which I think is okay. But if we look at the US market, right, again, back to cars and bids, they're selling like 30 minimum. Because we look at this red one right here, right? This is a Spec R, heavily modified, went for 30K. Granted, sort of low mileage, 62,000 miles. But I did see on this one, this was a grade R car. And again, like as we just saw with the Japanese auctions, grade R cars are going for like mid-teens. So after import, that you're looking at like 20 all in for an R grade Spec R. So you're making, I skipped ahead a bit there. You're making like 10K importing an S15. So there's a heavy sort of like tax on buying S15s locally. You can get like a Spec S for, as we see here, like low 20s, late teens. I think the late teens ones are like generally kind of rusty. This Spec S looks pretty good, but Spec S's are noticeably cheaper. So if you want a Spec S, great. If you want a Spec R, it's tough to get them for reasonable prices in the US. So I feel like, given what we've seen with other JDM cars, I don't know if we're going to see that with the S15 in terms of skyrocketing prices, just because it's still confusing to me why they are not as popular as I think they should be, given how cool and iconic they are. I mean, we're looking at bring a trailer here, 22 results for, this is just Silvias in general. These are rare cars in terms of the fact that people just aren't selling them in the US for some reason. They've been legal for 2 years, and we have 22 sales on Bring a Trailer. I feel like that's kind of low. And I was looking on Auto Tempest earlier, 3 listings in all of history for S15s. At least what Auto Tempest is showing me, and 0 listings for S15s right now. Granted, that's not picking up everything, but if you're looking at companies that are importing S15s and selling them here, they're going to be ridiculous expensive. You're looking at like 40, 35, 40K. It's pretty crazy. So my personal opinion, if you want an S15 spec R, import it. It's way cheaper. It seems like it's way cheaper. I mean, I'll be able to tell you if I end up like actually buying one and importing it, but from my perspective, you can get them for like low 20s, mid 20s, all in. Whereas for a similar car in the US, you're looking at 30, 35 plus. If you're willing to get a great R car, it's cheap. So that would be my take. But the last thing I want to say regarding S15s is what you could get instead of that. If you wanted like a nice S15, which we can see here and Bring a Trailer, yeah, you're looking at 35, 40, right? But what can you get for that money, which is a similar car? And I like to do this thing where we look at modern alternatives. So if you want something with a little bit more safety, more, modern features, that kind of thing. And I stumbled. This is a car that's kind of always in the top of my mind. It's a Supra, and I do feel like I mentioned this car too much, but today I'm talking about the 2-liter one, so the 4-cylinder specifically. These, I feel like, are disrespected cars, and to some extent it's justified, I guess. I don't know that that's true. I've never driven a 4-cylinder Supra, but the recipe is there. It's a turbo 4-cylinder, relatively lightweight. I mean, it's like 3,000 pounds, and they're not crazy expensive. I mean, it's the same basic recipe as a S15, right? Turbo 4, rear-wheel drive, fun to drive, and has some good drift presence. Granted, I don't follow like Formula Drift or anything like that, but I feel like whenever I see drifting edits and shit, there's a Supra there, going wild. So I feel like it has promise, and I would like to see more of these cars, and I would be interested in driving them to see how it is, especially since I've driven the 3-liter 6-cylinder, and I'd like to see how this compares, because that was a really good car and it felt potent with that powertrain. But the 4-cylinder in the Supra, I mean, obviously it's making less power, less torque, all of that, but it's lighter. So I'd be curious to know how good of a car this is. And as you can see here, they're not crazy expensive, but people aren't really selling them. It seems that they're probably just not that popular. And let me bring this up to compare the S15 and Supra more closely. So as I was saying, pretty much the same recipe. You got your 2-liter 4-cylinder. They're making similar power. Silvia at 250. Note, this is a spec R I'm talking about specifically. Again, Spec S, Autech are going to be much lower than this because those are NA cars. Supra's a 255. This says PS, but for all intents and purposes, it's horsepower. A big difference here. The S15 is making, I don't understand this kg FM number. I generated this with ChatGPT, so it messed up that number. But I do know, I have the exact spec here. It's torque. So the S15 is making 203 pound-feet of torque at 4,800 RPM. The Supra is making 295, so like 92 more pound-feet of torque at 1,500 to 4,000 RPM. That's pretty significant. And I feel like that's the biggest differentiator in terms of how fun this car is, or these two cars are. Because with that big torque, that much bigger torque figure at a lower RPM number, it's much more enjoyable on the road, because that's what's fun when you're driving a car often. Granted, you're probably not driving an S15 as a daily, so obviously in this case, if you're looking for a daily, get a Supra. But if you're looking for just a second car, and I'm sort of playing devil's advocate here to say, like, what's a modern alternative to this iconic JDM car? You know, so if you're using them for the same purpose, that is the biggest sort of difference between these cars, I think. So I would say the Supra is probably going to be more fun to do pulls and just random bullshit on the road, because you can feel that torque lower. But yeah, top or 0 to 60, the 5.4 in the S15 is a bit of an estimate. 5 seconds on the Supra. Another big or noticeable difference is the weight. So the S15 is probably, I couldn't get a like exact number on this. I looked at a couple places in forums and shit. People were saying like 2,700 to like 2,800 plus in some cases. Wikipedia said 3,000, which I was like, I don't know about that. That doesn't seem right. But maybe in some variants, like with the aero and all that, it might bring things up a little bit. But yeah, you're looking at like 2,700 pounds for the S15, about 3,100 for the Supra. So that difference in weight, I would think if you're driving them side by side, is going to be noticeable. When I drove a Supra, the Mark V, I felt like the stiffness of the suspension made the car so communicative and, you know, responsive that I didn't feel like the weight was a big issue. But I bet if I drove an S15, I would enjoy it more, just because I like that sort of lightweight feel of a car. So that's one thing to know. It's hard to engineer out weight, right? So that's something to note. Wheelbase, the Supra has a shorter wheelbase. So I think this is going to come into play when you're looking at what you want to do with the car, track stuff. Like, generally a shorter wheelbase, I believe, is good for, you know, turn-in and handling, whereas a longer wheelbase, it contributes to the drifting prowess, which is why Silvias in general are so lauded for their drifting abilities, because of that long wheelbase. It gives you additional stability when you're like in a long drift. So there is that. And I think, just a quick note on a wheelbase, the S15 just looks better, which I think is going to be honestly the biggest or one of the bigger advantages of the car. It's just fucking cool. And the rarity factor and everything. It's hard to not love the look of that car. The spec car is, as my brother said, like one of the most beautiful JDM cars ever made. One of the most beautiful. Well, yeah, I guess let's keep it at JDM for now. And I think the only thing that gives it a run for its money is the FD. So, I don't know which one I would choose, but I do know the S15 looks absolutely gorgeous. And then another thing, the S15 obviously you can get a 6-speed manual. The 2-liter Supra is only automatic, so the 3-liter got the manuals, but from what I understand, the 4-cylinders never got a manual, which I guess makes sense if you're going to go through the whole engineering, you know, difficulties of creating a manual for this car. That you do it for the one that people sort of idolize, and that is sort of the aspirational car, that 6-cylinder Supra, the B58. So it makes sense that Toyota didn't, or I guess BMW, didn't make a manual for the 4-cylinder. But that is a massive downside. And honestly, I mean, me personally, I was never going to be picking the Supra over the S15 for my specific needs, but that would be a deal breaker for me, I think. If I'm buying a fun car, it's almost always got to be manual. If I needed one car only to do everything, I still wouldn't pick the Supra. I'd probably pick something manual, but yeah, that's a massive downside that the 2-liter only has an automatic. Yeah, and that pretty much wraps it up. Overall, I would say obviously the spec car is a way cooler car, and if you're getting one of these as a second car, I would I don't see why you wouldn't pick something like a spec R, other than the difficulty of getting it into the U.S. and or buying it in the U.S. because there's again a heavy tax to that. But yeah, if you're willing to go through the difficulties, which there are companies that help you. I'm using Japan Card Direct to try to find and import a Supra or import a Spec R. But yeah, if you can deal with that, obviously this is a car worth getting, in my opinion, because of how iconic and cool it is. But if you wanted a modern alternative, there's a 4-cylinder Supra. You can get them for relatively affordable prices. Like I think we saw one in Cars and Bits for like 30K. Do you want a GR86 or or a B48 Supra? I know which one I would pick. A GR86 actually. Now that I think about it, because you can't get a manual in the Supra, so maybe this isn't such a good alternative actually. You guys let me know if you know what you think. But that'll be it for this one. Thank you for watching.